Hello, I'm Anika from Made to Sew. Now in this video, I'm going to be explaining how to grade a pattern, increase or decrease the size. Now this tutorial is for a pattern that has already been graded, but perhaps your measurements are too large or too small and therefore not covered in the pattern grading. Now we're going to be working with the grading rules that the pattern company has already applied. We're not going to be creating our own grading rules. You're going to need to start by taking your measurements for your bust, waist and hip. If you're unsure how to take these, please watch my how to measure tutorial. Once you've got your measurements, you can get out your pattern. Now I'm going to be working with my Copen pattern, which is a free dressmaking pattern that you can download from my website for a simple shift dress or top. However, the same technique will apply to any dressmaking pattern that you're working with. Now throughout the tutorial, I'm going to be working with a bust of 49 inches, a waist of 44 inches and a hip of 52 inches. These measurements were kindly sent to me by a lady on Facebook. Now, the first thing that you're going to need to do is to record down the last two sizes because we want to find out the difference between the two sizes. Now, because we're going to be grading to increase the size of the pattern, that's going to be the size 5 and the size 6. But obviously you may be doing this to decrease the size of the pattern. So it would be the smaller sizes, the 0 and the 1. And you want to find out the difference between the two sizes. So the size 5 measures 42.5 inches at the bust, the size 6 45 inches at the bust. That's 2.5 inches difference. The waist is 35.5 inches for a size 5 and 38 inches for a size 6. So again, a 2.5 inch difference. And the hip is 45 inches for a size 5 and 47 inches for a size 6. So 2 inches difference. Now we're going to continue working up following the same difference, the 2.5 inches at the bust and waist and the 2 inches at the hip until we get to the size that we need. You would do the same thing if you're decreasing the size of the pattern. Now I'm going to be working with inches, imperial measurements throughout this tutorial, but if you're working with centimetres, the same technique applies. So you're going to need to start by adding 2.5 inches to the bust and waist of the size 6 measurements and 2 inches to the hip. That's going to give us 47.5 inches at the bust, 40.5 inches at the waist and 49 inches at the hip. And we're going to need to continue this up to a size 8 as well because we're not quite getting to the measurements we need. A size 8 would give us 50 inches at the bust, 43 inches at the waist, and 51 inches at the hip. Now, we can see that the bust measurement would fit the bust of 49 inches that we're aiming for. But unfortunately, the waist and hip is still slightly too small. So we're going to increase this again to get to a size 9. And the size 9 gives us 52.5 inches at the bust, 45.5 inches at the waist, and 53 inches at the hip. So now we can compare this to our measurements. And we know that the 49 inches at the bust would fit into a size 8. The 44 inches of the waist would actually be in the centre of the size 8 and size 9. And the 52 inches of the hip would be in the centre of the size 8 and the size 9, so an 8.5. Now, because we're going to be getting close to a size 9, we're actually going to grade out to a size 9 all over. And then we're going to blend between the size 8 at the bust and the 8.5 at the waist and hip. If you're unsure about how to do that, then I have a tutorial on how to choose the correct size pattern that shows you how to blend between sizes. Before we start with the grading, I want you to take a look at your pattern, and you will find that the smaller sizes have less of a difference than the larger sizes. Generally speaking, the smaller sizes, so the UK size 6 to 10, the difference between the sizes is less than the UK average sizes, so the size 14, 16, 18. And then again, the grading is increased between an 18 and a 20 and a 22. We've been working with the difference between the 5 and the 6, simply because this is the easiest way for me to teach you how to increase the size of the pattern, to work with the last two sizes and grade them up. However, if you find that you want a slightly quicker method, then you can by all means work out the difference in your size to the size 6 and add that on. You also might find that you want to check out your finished garment measurements to see if you're happy with the finished garment measurements and the amount of ease added in the pattern. Now you're going to need a ruler and a sharp pencil to continue. I'm going to be drawing some of my lines in with a Sharpie just so that it's clear for you to see on camera, but you're always going to want to work with a nice sharp pencil. So we're going to be working with this seam down the side of the back. The same would apply for the side of the front. Now we need to find out the difference between the size 5 and the size 6, and in inches it's 5/8 of an inch. We know that we need to come out to a size 9. So I generally find the easiest way to do this is to first come out to a size 7. So you're going to move out by 5/8 of an inch. And you're simply going to do this all the way down the side seam. You are following exactly how the pattern has already been graded. And this is our size 7. We now need to work out to a size 8. And again, we're going to be coming out the same, that 5/8 of an inch. And then you would do the same for a size 9. As I mentioned, I find this is the easiest way. You're going to grade everywhere to a size 9, and then you're going to work your way along, blending between the sizes as you see fit. Now the side seam is the easy bit to do. It's slightly more complicated around the curves of the armhole and the neckline. So let me show you how. Now it is trickier around the curves of the armhole and the neckline, but you're going to want to do exactly the same thing. You're going to want to measure between the size 5 and the size 6 and do the same thing to take it out to a size 7, again for a size 8 and again for a size 9. Now if you remembered, at the bust area we're definitely going to be a size 8, so actually you really don't need to bother bringing this up to a size 9 in these areas, but obviously it would depend on your figure how many times you need to increase it. What I recommend you do here is choose a few plotting points along the curve, and at those points you measure the difference and you come out and you do a mark. You're then going to need to connect them together, and you may find that you can get a curve that does this, but you may find that you have to do it by hand. Now you're also going to need to make sure that you record the notches and move those across to the next size. I've now come out to a size 8 here. I've done a 7 and an 8, and we're happy with that at the armhole because we're going to be using a size 8 around the bust. Now you're going to want to continue this technique all the way around the pattern. And you also need to make sure that you do it around the corresponding pattern pieces. So the sleeve and the facings, they also need to be increased to a size 8. You may want to check your bicep measurement against the finished garment measurement to check that the sleeve will fit in a size 8. As with all things, I would recommend that you create a calico sample of this because you can find that you can start to distort garments by increasing or decreasing them by a large amount. That's why patterns will only come in a set number of sizes, because you get to a point where you do lose the accuracy as the pattern has been increased or decreased by too much. But as long as you make a sample garment and you tweak anything you're not happy with, then you can use this as a good technique to work from. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial and that you'll feel more confident when it comes to grading, increasing or decreasing a pattern size in the future. Thanks for watching and good luck with your sewing.